Hey you guys, it's Karen. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the whole menopause situation, because I had my womb biopsy yesterday at the hospital and it was horrific. I have had cervicals all my life. You know, I've never been somebody to miss them. And especially because I did have abnormal cells years ago, which are precancerous cells. I had the level 3, which is precancerous cells, so I had to have them burned off and all of that nonsense. So I'm very aware of that and make sure I continue to have my cervicals. I'm now back to every 3 years. And what's that got to do with menopause? Oh, what I was thinking was, it never used to be that painful. It was something that was more embarrassing than it was painful, you know. But it's got more and more painful over the years, and now it's real agony. And so having the womb biopsy on top of that, because the actual cervical exam is painful, and then they're like, you know, it was a punch biopsy where they're taking a chunk of your womb away. And so that was really painful. So the nurse was amazing, and she was holding my hand and she was like, squeeze my hand, squeeze my hand. But afterwards I asked, the woman told me that as far as she can see, everything looks healthy. And I said to her, why does it hurt me so much? You know, I said, why am I getting such pelvic pain? Why does that cervical exam hurt so much? And she said that what she could see on my cervix was scarring from when I had the laser treatment for the precancer cells, and she could also see some possible endometriosis. So I've had endometriosis for many, many years, and endometriosis is something where when you have your period, you know, the tissue comes off and doesn't all come out, it kind of reattaches to other things, and it can attach to everything. Because I always wondered if that was something to do with the bladder, but I discussed it with the urologist at the time. So she said some of it looks like it might have attached to my cervix, and that can cause pain. The biopsy, she said, that's always going to be painful for people because, you know, you take a chunk of your tissue. So that was interesting to find out. However, this was a gynecologist that I saw, a specialist, and I told her that, you know, the woman I saw said that the first doctor I saw said she didn't know if I was in menopause or not, or perimenopausal. And then the GP that I spoke to, that I've just told you guys about, said to me that she thought I was at the start of menopause and that I was perimenopausal, even though I hadn't had the blood test. She said that I'm at the right age and that it takes approximately 5 years and whatnot. This specialist was completely the opposite. She said, no, I don't think you're perimenopausal. She said, I don't think, from your symptoms and everything that's going on with me, she says, you don't sound perimenopausal. The average age for the menopause to begin is 52, which is completely different to what I'd been told before. She also didn't think that it lasted as long. Do you remember the GP had told me that it lasted between 5 and 7 years. This woman was saying it's between 1 and 2 years. And I think that it's just all completely personal and unique. I think that, I remember I was talking to Kev about this yesterday. Him and I tried to look at how polycystic ovary syndrome works. And we did charts between us. We tried to work out this book that I'd read and these charts. And I took them to, I was working in the NHS at the time, and I took them to Richard, the guy that was he was my endocrinologist, as in my hormone specialist, but I also worked with him. And so I was like, okay, this is the chart I've done for like the luteinizing hormone and all these different hormones and how they work, and thinking of things I can do to help myself, you know, and how does this, I remember what I was looking at specifically was how insulin is related, because insulin is definitely related to polycystic ovary syndrome and to hormones in general. I think I mentioned to you guys when I was on keto last year, I had a regular period every month, and I've never had that in my whole life. And that was because I wasn't producing as much insulin. There wasn't as much problem with my insulin because I wasn't eating sugar or carbs. And I remember showing it to him, and he was like, he did give me an explanation, but honestly I didn't understand it. He was like, well, yes, that would work, but this one doesn't work with it. It's so complex. It's unbelievably complex. And he was kind of laughing at me, going like, you're trying to do my job, you know. And I was like, no, I've just always been somebody that likes to research everything to the nth degree. You guys know this. So I think that menopause is probably the same. I think that it is different for every woman. I think it's different the length of time it lasts. I think it's different the symptoms you have. I think it's different whether it bothers you or not. Some of you have said to ask my mother, but obviously I don't see my mother. I speak to her occasionally, but I did have a conversation with my natural mother and asked her when she had menopause, but she was a bit sort of vague about it. She said that she thinks it started in her early 50s. So I don't know whether I'm perimenopausal or not. There isn't really, or there doesn't seem to be, a way to 100% confirm it. The way that it is confirmed by the GP is if you have not had a period for 6 months. But in cases like mine with polycystic ovary syndrome, that can be the case. I have gone 6 months without a period before. It's not unusual. I could go 8 months without a period, then have a period for 5 weeks that doesn't stop, as has just happened, then have one every 3 weeks, and then have nothing for another year. I mean, it's so irregular, with having polycystic ovary syndrome. And so it's really hard to be able to tell. I could have hormone tests. And again, somebody mentioned you could go to a hormone specialist, and she said, just ask sugar, puff and fluff. I was actually speaking to Nisha on the phone at the time she first went to go to the hormone specialist. So, I'm fully aware of that. That's something I've had done many years ago. I had a test where I had to give saliva over 7 days, and I had a full hormone panel. I've had more recently than that. Remember, I did an online one. I did a female hormone panel to find out where my hormones were, and they seem to be fine, So I know that that's something I could do. It may be something I would need to do to get HRT if my GP was funny about it, because with HRT, there's a lot of scare stories. There are some risks that come with taking it, but I would look further into the evidence. Again, you guys know me. I will look into it myself. I will look into all the research, and then I will come to a conclusion. But from what I know and from what I saw of some of the studies when I worked in the hospital, I think I would take it. But it's like with women that have never had children have less chance of getting certain cancers, but more chance of getting others. Women that have not had children, it's the opposite way around, And I think from memory, it's the same with HRT. There's some things it protects against, there's some things you have a little bit more risk of. So I would look at those and sort of weigh it up, But I think I would probably take it if I ever felt like I had, that the symptoms were horrendous. I am already on cyproterone acetate, and actually I probably need to discuss that with somebody at the point where I feel like I am menopausal. Do I think that I am? I honestly don't feel that I am, because I'd mentioned to you guys about the hot flushes and that I thought it was the lights, but then when the lights weren't on, I'd had that hot flush that morning. But when I say hot flush, I'd never ever go red. And I remember with my stepmom, when she had hot flushes, she used to go bright red, and she used to be really, really agitated by it. I wasn't agitated by it, I was just hot. And when I told my husband, he was saying, but you've always been like that. You've never had a great temperature regulation. I can be either freezing cold or too hot just because I'm running around. So that may or may not be hot flushes. That's really the only bit I've experienced of it is that day I was in here and the lights weren't on. And I've had night sweats, but again, I've had night sweats before, and that can happen for me when my sugars are out of balance. Then the only other thing is low mood, and I have, again, with my dad dying, it's difficult to know whether that's related to my dad or whether it's anything to do with the menopause, but I was fine before he died. I certainly didn't feel like I had a low mood then, and actually I don't feel like I've got a low mood now. Despite that happening, I have my ups and downs, as we've discussed. And actually this week is better than last week. Last week I cried every day about Dad. This week I have had moments and I've stopped myself crying, but I've not in general felt like crying every day all day. So my feeling is that I'm maybe approaching perimenopause, that it's maybe getting that time. The heavy bleeding has stopped with the tranexamic acid, so that's great. Obviously it started up again after having this horrific womb biopsy, but hopefully that will stop on its own. She told me something interesting. She said to me, are you making sure you have 3 periods a year? And I was like, what now? What do you mean? And she said, yeah, you should really make sure you have 3 periods a year. And I was like, okay, you mean by taking a progesterone and then stopping it? And she said, yeah. And I was like, well, no, certainly that's not something that's ever been told to me. What I was told by the other Prof. Duncan that I used to see, who I also worked with, was, I remember he liked my spreadsheets. He loved my spreadsheets of my medication and everything. And he was like, look, you go away and work out your own schedule for taking cyproterone acetate. And he said, if you get something that works out perfectly, please let me know, because I might well use that, But he told me, he said, basically with the estrogen levels, because the cyproterone I'm on can reduce estrogen, what you need to do is, if you ever go 6 months without a period, get estrogen blood tests and let them see if you've got enough estrogen or estrogen, whatever. But now what she was saying is the latest research is that you should try to make sure you have 3 periods a year. So monitor throughout the year and make yourself have a period by taking some progesterone and then stopping it, so that it causes the breakdown of the lining of the womb. Because when it gets too thick and it isn't shedding, that's when it can cause problems. So that was interesting. So yeah, I just wanted to come, I suppose this is really in response to a lot of your comments, and also, like I said, I had this updated information from the specialist yesterday, and I think, I will, if I feel like I am, even over the next 2 weeks, I'll be really conscious of what symptoms I have and whatnot, and it's on my list to research further, and I'm asking, I asked my sister the question about it, and I might ask my stepmom about it, a couple of things, or what symptoms did you have. I know that's not going to be genetic for either of them, because I'm not blood related to either of them, but just to find out more information. And if I feel like it's becoming something that's a nuisance, then I will look into it. I'll look into it more, but at the moment I don't feel either it is the start of the menopause and I've not got that many symptoms and it will get worse, or it's not the start of it yet, So either way, I'm just going to watch and wait. And I think, like I said, it's just one of those things where I feel like some GPs will be okay about HRT, some won't be. Some will think that you have this, you're this age when it starts because that's been their experience with women. Others will think it's this way because either their experience or their patients, or because that's what they experienced themselves, or because that's what their training was, I think too many people think there is one answer, and something I'm learning the older I get is that there is no conclusive answer for many things. Most things don't have a conclusive answer. It is down to opinion, it's down to interpretation of the data that is there, and it's down to the experience of the person. And like I said, we're all individuals, so it will be different for everybody. So yeah, that's everything to tell you. I won't get the results for the biopsy, from the biopsy for 4 to 6 weeks. So I'll have to just sit and wait. But she said everything looked healthy apart from the scarring and the endometriosis. It all looked healthy. And there was no reason to suspect womb cancer. Womb cancer is something that is more prevalent in postmenopausal women. So she said even if it was the menopause, until you're postmenopausal and not producing any estrogen, that's when it becomes more of a concern. So that's everything to update you on. I would love to hear your experiences though. I would love to know, what age were you when you noticed, when you started thinking, is this the menopause? What age were you? Or did you get any confirmation or diagnosis from the GP? Tell me about it. Just tell me about what experiences you've had, what symptoms you had, what was the worst thing about it. And yeah, I know that most people will find HRT helps. I'm pretty sure they will. But there'll be some people that won't want to take it. I already know people that don't want to take it. But I'd love to hear your experiences. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.